grew up in Calgary, Alberta, near that area, which is Western Canada. I grew up in a very, very small towns. I've moved around quite a bit as a child. Farms, small town, and then in my last year of high school, I lived in Calgary, and that's where I went to my undergrad in medical school. In high school, I had a lot of interest in science, biology, chemistry, most of the science courses, so I wanted a career that involved science. In 11th grade, I toured the medical school in Calgary. I went on a whim to the university there just to, see what I might like to do. And I remember going to the medical school and talking to students, and they showed me the lab with all the body parts and things, and it was really nothing that I ever considered until I saw it. I thought, yeah, I think this might work for me, and so that kind of sparked my interest. When I finished medical school, I was one of those guys that whatever rotation I was doing, if it was obstetrics and gynecology, it's like, well, this is what I'm going to do. If it was surgery, that's what I want to do. So absolutely everything I did, I kind of could see myself doing. In my internship, which again involved a lot of different realms, surgery, psychiatry, internal medicine, obstetrics, gynecology, it was the same kind of thing. I kind of liked everything. So I think once I realized that I don't have to specialize into one area, I kind of had an interest in everything. I realized that that's what I wanted to do. So I've been in Tucson since 1995. When I finished my residency at University of Kansas, I pretty much took a map of the United States out because I knew I could practice anywhere, and tried to narrow it down to where I might like to live. Growing up in Western Canada, I had seen a lot of the places in Western U.S., so I wanted to come west. I interviewed in Texas and California, up in Phoenix in this area. When I first came to Tucson, I'd never been here before. And I joined a medical group here who I really felt I fit in with quite well. So the job really attracted me initially, but also once I had seen Tucson and what it had to offer, that was kind of the selling point for me. I think my main involvement has been with, in the last 4 or 5 years, has been with Susan G. Komen. We're very involved with this and raising money for breast cancer. That's been my main community involvement for probably the last 4 or 5 years. We have a cycling team that my wife and I, sort of work with and help organize and raise money. It was a lot easier to work back in the day in terms of the consumption of time that it required to actually see patients, document. I was fairly young when I started, and it was pretty good initially. I think, once I got my practice going and got to know people, it became very rewarding. Probably, 15 years ago, mostly because of changes in insurance, we, as primary care doctors, we got disincentivized from doing hospital work. There was the option there to do it, but a lot of payers made it very difficult. Some would allow us to still see our patients in the hospital, but they weren't going to pay us for it. And so hospitalists came into being, and that actually changed my life quite a bit. The difference, I don't have to go to the hospital, but it seems like I have more paperwork than I have ever had. I usually get here maybe 15 minutes before I start. I'll see my patients. Usually somewhere between 10 and 12 per half day. I don't have time to dictate all my notes, and then I have labs and refills and phone calls. So I tend to see my patients and then over lunch hour do all the paperwork or try to get it done. I usually don't. And then afternoon see patients. Then afterwards do all the documentation, answer all the phone calls, and do all the stuff that I haven't done. So it's pretty solid 8 till 7:30, 8 till 6. The big thing for primary care physicians is the way a traditional practice is run, and the changes that have occurred over the last 10 or 15 years has made it such that it's really difficult to find enough time to spend with patients. There's a constant pressure because of overhead expense, what it costs me to run my practice, how many people I have to hire to make it function, that indirectly I'm sort of forced to see more patients than I'm comfortable with. And a few years ago I thought, well, that's just going to balance out. Eventually I'll get used to it, I'll become more efficient, and I'll be able to work with that. But what has happened is it's gotten worse. Payers and Medicare and insurance companies are wanting more information, and it seems that most of the information that they're requiring on patients is work that falls upon me, so that makes it my paperwork more, my hours longer. The only way I can, make the practice function is by seeing patients in the office. So there's this constant pressure for me to see more and more people, and subsequently I have to give people less and less time. 3 years ago, I had started reading about membership practices or concierge practices, and looked into it because for me it seemed like an option for me where I could try to break away from the pressure of seeing high volumes of patients. I've never been the type of physician that actually likes to rush through things. I enjoy what I do, and to be honest, a lot of patients, as my practice has gotten older and I've gotten older, require more time than I'm really able to give them. So the concierge model was a way for me to kind of break away from that. I could create a situation where I would have enough time to see people, to evaluate people, and not having to rush from room to room and say, okay, our time's up. If you've got 2 or 3 other problems, you're going to have to reschedule. You're going to have to come back and see me. And the other thing is, just people that have acute problems. I mean, medicine is, not all chronic care. There's a lot of acute problems, and it became very difficult to get patients in who had acute medical problems. They would call and I would be booked, and they couldn't get in to see me for a few days. So I wanted to be able to have a situation where I could have what I felt was adequate time to see people and better availability. The concierge model fit that. It was a way for me to be able to create a practice where I could offer those things. I think in several ways. First of all, they're not going to come here and feel like they're being rushed. I've known most of my patients for a long time, some of them 20 years, and they can tell when I'm stressed and rushed because they'll tell me. They'll say, "Hey, Dr. Giles, you're looking a little stressed today. Is everything okay?" And you catch yourself and you say, "Yeah, I think I'm stressed." And for me, the stress is just the amount of work because I've got a family I want to get home to, and when it piles up, I just know I'm going to have to be here late, and it kind of creates stress. So they're gonna benefit from having an environment where I can be myself. I can be my natural self, relaxed, sense of humor, and actually have the time to be able to spend with them and maybe answer some of the questions that they aren't asking because maybe they're trying to be nice. You know, he looks a little busy today, maybe I won't ask him that other thing, or maybe I won't bring up this other problem that I've been having because he looks real busy. So they're going to get the benefit of, I think, seeing a less stressful person, and you know, more of the type of person that I am outside the office. They will have way better access to me. I certainly, you know, patients that are going to need to see me acutely are going to be able to do that. They'll have access to me through the phone or email, and I certainly don't have any problem, any concerns with that at all, because that kind of stuff is easy with technology. I prefer to know. I'm going to know my patients so well that it really won't be an issue. So they're going to benefit from availability and time, and you know, me being less stressed out, I think. So yeah, I see a lot of benefits for patients. If you feel that your health is important to you, and or if you're sick of being a number when it comes to accessing health care, this would certainly be something you should consider, because you know, my philosophy of what a primary care practice should be is somewhere where you can come, you feel comfortable, you're not feeling rushed, you feel the doctor's listening to you and he's doing all those things for you, and taking any extra time that you need. So there's definitely the benefit that somebody's going to be there and be able to give you time when you need it, and be your advocate. I think for patients that are you know, really struggling with medicine, one of the big reasons is because of the speed and the time, and you know, not getting listened to, not really, there's really no focus on the patient's well-being, and the reason for that is completely a time factor. If you want, you know, personalized health care, if you want somebody that's gonna, you know, be there and have the time to really, you know, guide you, you'd be crazy not to consider something like this.